The cold blue lights of the Scifi palace shimmered like frozen stars as Evan Hale stepped inside, trying to steady his breath. The long hallway stretched endlessly ahead, the walls made of strange crystal that echoed every footstep like a distant drum. He had heard rumors about this place, stories whispered in human briefings, stories of a queen so terrifying that diplomats refused to speak with her face to face. Many said she crushed visitors without a single warning. Others claimed she was not cruel but simply alien beyond understanding. Evan did not know what to believe. He only knew one thing. He had come alone because no one else dared. The guards, towering Scifi warriors with deep purple armor and glowing patterns across their skin, walked ahead of him in silence. Their movements were smooth, almost ghost-like, but Evan did not feel hostility from them. Instead, he sensed something else, curiosity. They studied him in quick side glances, as if wondering why a small human had volunteered to stand before their queen when entire fleets trembled at her presence. Evan kept his breathing calm. He reminded himself why he was here. His mission was simple. Try to ease tensions between humans and the Scifi before misunderstandings turned into war. But deep down, something else had driven him to accept this mission. He had always believed that fear often came from ignorance, and he wanted to see for himself what kind of ruler Queen Valera truly was. When the final door opened, a wave of warm, glowing air brushed against his face. The throne room was massive, shaped like an ancient cavern touched by starlight. Bioluminescent vines crawled along the ceiling, glowing softly in shades of blue and silver. A gentle hum filled the air, almost like the heartbeat of the palace itself. And at the far end, sitting upon a throne carved from living crystal, was the queen. Evan had prepared himself countless times. Still, nothing could have prepared him for her presence. Queen Valera was tall, far taller than any human, and her form radiated a natural, commanding strength. Her skin shimmered with lines of luminous markings, each pattern glowing softly, like constellations etched into her body. Her eyes, bright and sharp like molten silver, watched the world with a silent intensity that made most beings freeze. Her long, dark tendrils flowed down her back like a living cloak, shifting gently with each breath she took. She was unlike anything Evan had ever seen, yet he did not feel fear. Instead, he felt an unexpected sense of awe. The guards bowed deeply. Evan followed, lowering his head even though he wasn't sure if humans bowed correctly in Scifi culture. When he raised his eyes, she was already studying him not with anger, but with a strange, careful attention, as if trying to read every thought he carried. So, her voice echoed, deeper and smoother than he expected. The humans send a single envoy. No fleet. No escort. Are they bold? Or desperate? Her words carried no hostility, but they demanded an answer. Evan stepped forward, adjusting the small translation device on his collar. I came alone because I wished to show respect. Your people value honesty and courage. I hoped arriving without soldiers would reflect that. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Not in anger, more like curiosity sharpening into focus. A curious human, she murmured, leaning back slightly. Most tremble when they hear my name. I don't believe rumors, Evan replied softly. I believe actions. For a moment, the throne room fell silent. The hum of glowing vines continued, but everything else became still, as if the entire palace was listening. Queen Valera rose. Her movements were graceful yet powerful, like a creature born from living starlight. Her shadow swept across the floor, vast and impossible to ignore. When she approached him, Evan felt the weight of her presence, but not the fear others had described. Instead, he sensed something that surprised him. Loneliness, hidden behind authority. You do not fear me, she said, stopping just a few steps away. I respect you, Evan answered simply. A faint shift crossed her expression. Not shock, something gentler, something she wasn't used to showing. Before she could speak again, the palace alarms erupted. The lights shifted instantly from blue to deep red. The glowing vines dimmed. The guards stiffened, gripping their crystal-forged weapons. Valera turned sharply, her voice becoming a command. Explain. A messenger rushed in, kneeling. "Your Majesty, there is a breach in the lower chamber. Unknown forces, armed, attempting to detonate the core." Evan's heart pounded. "An attack? Now?" Vailira's eyes blazed with fierce intensity. But before she could move, a violent explosion shook the palace. Crystals cracked overhead. The shockwave threw several guards off balance. A second blast followed closer this time. Without thinking, Evan lunged toward the queen as a chunk of glowing crystal broke from the ceiling and plummeted toward her. He grabbed her arm and pulled her to the side. The massive crystal shard slammed into the floor, sending a burst of energy across the hall. The guards stared in disbelief. No alien had ever dared touch their queen, let alone protect her. Evan stumbled, but he did not let go until he ensured she was safe. Vailira looked at him as if seeing a stranger, someone impossible, someone unexpected. "You shielded me," she said quietly. "You were in danger," Evan replied, catching his breath. She studied him again, but this time her gaze was softer, almost questioning. As guards rushed to secure the entrance, Vailira turned to Evan with a new intensity in her eyes. "Come with me," she ordered. But her voice sounded less like a command and more like a request she did not know how to phrase. She led him through a series of hidden passages behind the throne room. Even in crisis, her movements were calm and controlled. Her presence, steady. Evan followed closely, noticing how the dim lights reflected the faint glow of her markings. She did not speak for several minutes, as if considering something deeply. Finally, when they reached a quieter chamber, guarded by only 2 elite warriors, she turned to him. "Why?" she asked. "Why what?" he replied. "Why risk yourself for me?" Her silver eyes locked onto his. "Your people fear mine. They call us monsters. They call me a threat to every species. Yet you—" She paused, searching for the right words. "You acted without hesitation." Evan looked at her, truly looked, not at her height, not at her alien features, not at the intimidating presence that made entire armies flinch. He saw someone who carried too much responsibility, someone who had been feared for so long that she no longer expected kindness. "Because I don't see a monster," he said gently. "I see a leader trying to protect her people." Her breath caught slightly, barely noticeable, but real. She stepped closer. "Just a little. For centuries," she said softly. "No one has stood between me and danger except my own guards. No outsider ever chose to protect me." Her voice lowered. "Why does a human do what even my allies never dared?" Evan replied with steady honesty. "Because someone had to. And because you deserve it." Vailira held his gaze, her expression unreadable yet full of emotion she did not allow herself to show. The alarms finally stopped. The guards outside reported the attackers had been defeated, though the motive was still unknown. Even so, she did not look away from Evan. Her voice, when she spoke again, was almost quiet. "You are unlike any human I have ever seen." Evan smiled softly. "Maybe you just needed to meet the right one." Something changed in her eyes, something subtle but powerful. A wall she had carried for years shifted just a little. "Human," she said slowly, "I will speak with you again. Tonight. Alone." Evan nodded, feeling the atmosphere shift between them, heavier and gentler at the same time. Vailira stepped away, her long tendrils flowing behind her like dark rivers of silk. Before leaving, she glanced over her shoulder, her glowing markings reflecting emotion she rarely revealed. "This meeting," she said, "is not over." And for the first time since he arrived, Evan felt not fear, not tension, but the beginning of something neither human nor Zyrathi had ever expected. The evening air in the Zyrathi palace felt different, as if the walls themselves sensed the quiet tension that filled the halls. Evan walked behind a pair of elite guards who were guiding him toward the queen's private chamber. No one spoke, and even the soft hum of the glowing vines seemed gentler, almost respectful. It was strange to think that only hours ago, he had saved the queen's life. Stranger still was the fact that she wanted to meet him again alone. Evan took a slow breath as the guards stopped before a tall crystalline door. The crystal within it shifted like frozen liquid, glowing faintly with the same shade of silver that marked the queen's eyes. The guards bowed and stepped aside. One guard spoke softly, "Enter when ready. Her Majesty awaits." Evan nodded and stepped forward, the door opening silently at his approach. A wave of warm light washed over him as he entered the chamber. It was unlike any room he had seen before, part throne hall, part living sanctuary. Soft, floating crystals illuminated the space like small moons drifting in slow circles. The walls were shaped in smooth, flowing curves that made the room feel alive, almost breathing. At the far end, near a balcony overlooking the glowing city, stood Queen Valera. She wasn't in her battle armor now. Instead, she wore something lighter. A gown made of shimmering strands that looked woven from starlight. Her markings glowed gently, pulsing with a slow rhythm that matched her breathing. She looked less like a ruler preparing for war, and more like a woman burdened by centuries of solitude. But when she turned toward him, her eyes remained as intense as ever. "You came," she said softly. "I said I would," Evan replied, walking closer. She studied him carefully, her gaze trying to understand something she could not yet name. "Most envoys would have left after the attack," she said. "They would have asked to return to their ships or demanded an escort to safety. I'm not most envoys." "Yes," she murmured. "You are not." She walked toward him slowly, her steps silent on the glowing floor. Even without armor, she carried the presence of someone used to command. Yet the way she looked at him now felt different from before, not demanding, not warning. Searching. "Sit." She gestured toward a circular seat, shaped from living crystal. Evan sat, and she lowered herself opposite him. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The soft glow of the chamber wrapped them both like a warm blanket. Finally, Valera broke the silence. "You said something earlier, something that I cannot understand." Her voice was low, almost hesitant. "You said you do not see a monster when you look at me." "I don't," Evan answered. "But others do," she said, a shadow crossing her expression. "Entire species tremble when my fleets appear. They call me ruthless, they call me cold, they call me wrong." Her hands tightened slightly as she spoke. "A creature not meant to rule, a being to fear." Evan looked at her with a calm sincerity that surprised even her. "Fear is easy," he said quietly. "Understanding isn't." Valera held his gaze, so close now that he could see the fine details in her shimmering markings. "Tell me, then," she asked, leaning closer, "what do you understand of me? You met me only hours ago." "I understand enough," Evan replied gently. "I see someone who carries heavy responsibility. Someone who protects her people even when they don't understand the weight you hold. You lead alone. You fight alone. You stand alone because no one is allowed close enough to see you." Her breath stilled slightly, her eyes widening. Evan continued. "But I saw something today. When the attack happened, your first reaction wasn't anger. It was fear." She straightened, a little defensive. "Fear for my people. Fear that someone would destroy the palace and blame us." "No," Evan said quietly. "Fear that you might fail them." Valera froze. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever dared. "You hide your fear well," Evan added softly. "But it's still there. And that makes you real, not a monster." Valera slowly sat back, her expression unreadable. But her eyes carried an emotion she had not shown in decades. Something fragile. Something she wasn't used to sharing. After a long moment, she whispered, "Human, do you know what I asked myself after you saved me?" "What?" "I wondered why you of all beings chose to help me." Her voice was almost like a breath. "No one sees me the way you speak. Not even my own people." Evan shook his head lightly. "Then maybe they never looked closely enough." Her silver eyes shimmered at his words, as if they struck something deep within her. She stood and walked toward the balcony. Evan followed her slowly. Outside, the city glowed in shades of blue and purple, living crystals lining the skyline like frozen fire. The distant hum of energy fields echoed from the sky. Valera placed her hand on the railing. "Human," she said quietly. "I must ask you something. And I do not ask easily. I'll answer honestly," Evan replied. She turned toward him, eyes soft but trembling with something unspoken. "Am I a monster in your eyes, human?" The words were gentle, yet each syllable carried years of pain she had never admitted. Her markings dimmed as if reflecting her uncertainty. She stood tall, but her voice was that of someone afraid to hear the truth. Evan took a slow breath. He stepped closer, not too close, but enough that she could feel his sincerity. "No," he said firmly. "You're not a monster. Not even close." She stared, stunned. "You're strong," he continued. "You're brave. You're protective. You're far from human. Yes, but that doesn't make you a creature to fear. It makes you someone different, someone extraordinary." Her lips parted slightly in surprise. "And if anyone calls you a monster," Evan added softly, "it's because they're too afraid to see your heart behind your strength." For a moment, time stopped. A faint, trembling breath escaped her, barely audible, but full of shock. "No one," she whispered, "has ever spoken to me like this." Evan smiled gently. "Maybe no one else dared." Valera turned her gaze away, but only to hide how her eyes softened. She had been called powerful, terrifying, divine, dangerous, but never anything close to what Evan had just said. His words reached places she had locked away centuries ago. "Human," she said quietly. "You surprise me." He chuckled softly. "Good surprise, I hope." She looked at him again, and for the first time, a faint curve touched her lips, a small, uncertain smile, but a real one. "You confuse me," she corrected gently. "But it is not unpleasant." Before Evan could speak further, a soft pulse of energy echoed in the chamber. A communication crystal lit up behind them. Valera turned toward it, her expression shifting back to her queenly focus. A holographic image of a high-ranking general appeared. "Your Majesty, the Council has requested an emergency meeting regarding the attack." Valera's gaze hardened slightly, her leadership instincts returning. "I will attend shortly." The image faded. She turned back to Evan. "The attack today was not random. Someone wanted to destabilize the throne. Someone wanted to paint humans as conspirators. Once of the beggar. Do they suspect me?" Evan asked. "They may try," she admitted. "But I know better." She walked closer again, lowering her voice. "Stay near me," she said, "until we uncover who is behind this. There are those who fear the idea of peace between our species. They will not stop easily." Evan nodded. "I'll help however I can." Her eyes warmed slightly, the glow of her markings brightening. "I believe you." She moved past him toward the chamber exit, but before stepping through the doorway, she paused. Her voice softened again. "Human. Your answer tonight." She hesitated, rare vulnerability flickering across her markings. It left me breathless. Evan felt heat rise in his chest, surprised by her honesty. "I meant every word." She nodded slowly, almost shyly, something he never thought possible from a queen who commanded entire star systems. Then she said the words that changed everything. "Walk with me tomorrow. Not as an envoy. As someone I wish to understand." And with that, she disappeared into the hallway, leaving Evan alone in the glowing chamber with his heartbeat echoing in his ears. The next morning came with a soft glow, as the twin suns rose over the crystalline city. Evan walked through the palace corridors feeling a strange mix of calm and anticipation. The events of the previous night replayed in his mind: Queen Valera's questions, her quiet vulnerability, and the gentle way she admitted his words had left her breathless. He had not expected to build such a connection with someone as feared as her. Yet here he was, preparing to meet her again. 2 elite Zyrathi guards escorted him through a long hallway lined with floating crystal lanterns. Each lantern shimmered with gentle colors that shifted as he passed. At the end of the corridor, a large doorway opened into a wide terrace garden filled with glowing plants and flowing streams of light blue water. The air was warm and refreshing, carrying a soft scent of something sweet and unfamiliar. Valeria stood at the center of the garden. She wore a simple robe of woven silver strands that flowed around her like mist. Without her crown or armor, she looked less like a queen, and more like someone finally allowing herself a moment of peace. Yet her posture remained dignified, always aware of who she was and what she represented. When she saw Evan, her expression softened slightly. "Human," she said in a calm voice. "You came." "I said I would," Evan replied with a small smile. She nodded, and for a moment, she simply studied him. Her silver eyes carried a warmth that had not been present the day before. Then she turned and began to walk slowly through the garden. Evan followed, keeping pace beside her. "I brought you here," she said, "because I wanted to show you something few outsiders have ever seen. This garden was created by my ancestors. It is a place of reflection, a place of truth. It's beautiful," Evan said honestly. Looking around, Valeria glanced at him. "Beauty is not something most species associate with my people. Maybe they've been too afraid to look." Her steps slowed, and a faint glow along her markings pulsed gently. "You say things no other envoy would dare." "Maybe they should," Evan replied. For a moment, she said nothing, but her silence was thoughtful, not distant. They continued walking until they reached a small bridge of glowing glass, stretching over a stream of shimmering liquid. Valeria rested her hand on the railing. "Last night," she murmured, "your words stayed with me long after you left." Evan paused beside her. "Which part?" "All of it," she admitted softly. "Especially when you said I am not a monster." "You're not." She took a quiet breath, her gaze drifting over the glowing garden. "Human." "Evan, you do not understand what such words mean to someone like me. I was raised to be strong, to be feared, to be unshakable. My reflection has frightened others since I was young. Even those who served my family approached me with caution." Her voice lowered. "I learned early that softness invited danger. That trust led to betrayal. That no one would ever look at me without fear." Evan listened carefully, realizing that beneath her strength was years of isolation she had never chosen. "You deserve to be seen," he said gently. "Not through fear, not through prejudice, but for who you really are." Her eyes shifted to him, softening again. "You speak as though you know me." "I'm learning," Evan replied. A small, almost hidden smile appeared on her face. "You are bold for someone so small. It's part of being human." They shared a brief moment of quiet amusement. But before they could continue, a sudden burst of sharp energy lit up the sky above the palace. The ground trembled for only a second, but enough to break the calm. Valeria immediately straightened, her expression shifting from gentle to alert. That was not natural. Evan looked upward too. A wave of dark smoke rose from a distant tower. Guards rushed into the garden. One kneeled before the queen. "Your Majesty, we have detected an unauthorized intrusion in the northern wing. A strike team attempted to breach your private archive." Valeria's eyes hardened. "The same group from yesterday?" "We believe so." Evan stepped forward. "Do they want to frame humans again?" "Possibly," the guard replied. Valeria lifted her hand. "Prepare the palace defense grid. Lock down all exits." "Yes, Your Majesty." As the guards rushed off, Valeria turned to Evan. "You must stay close. They will try to use you against me." "I'm not leaving," Evan said immediately. Her markings brightened slightly, not with danger but with gratitude. The queen stepped forward, her presence powerful and steady. "Then walk with me. There is something I must show you." They hurried through the palace, heading toward the northern wing. The path grew darker the deeper they went. The glowing vines dimmed, replaced by older crystalline structures that gave off a faint, cold light. "This part of the palace," Valeria explained, "holds the oldest secrets of my people. History, war records, and the truth behind the rumor that my ancestors were monsters." Evan glanced at her. "Is that what your enemies want?" "Perhaps," she said. "Or perhaps they wish to destroy the truth, whatever it may be." They reached a heavy crystalline door guarded by 2 elite warriors. Valera placed her hand on the door's surface. The crystal glowed with her markings, then opened with a low hum. Inside was a vast chamber, filled with floating archives, orb-like crystals containing ancient records. They glowed in gentle colors, drifting in the air like an endless constellation. Valera stepped inside slowly. "This is the core of my legacy," she said. "If it falls, my throne crumbles." Evan followed her carefully. "Who would want to destroy this?" "Someone who fears the truth," she replied. Before he could ask more, a sudden sound echoed a faint metallic click. Valera reacted instantly, pulling Evan behind her as a hidden turret activated in the ceiling. A beam of concentrated energy shot downward. Evan ducked as Valera raised her arm. A shimmering shield formed from her markings, absorbing the blast with a burst of light. She stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Show yourself." A figure dropped from a higher platform, an armored alien with a mask covering its face. "You should not be alive," Valera said coldly. The intruder hissed. "The throne must change. Your rule ends today." They lunged forward. Valera blocked the attack with elegant force, her body moving like a weapon forged through centuries of training. Evan backed away, trying to stay out of the line of fire, but his instincts kept him alert. The intruder tried to activate another turret. Evan noticed the movement and threw a broken crystal piece at the control panel, knocking it aside just in time. Valera glanced at him between strikes. "You are reckless." "It worked," he replied. She almost smiled, but the moment was cut short when the intruder fired a hidden blade of energy. Valera deflected it, but the attacker moved toward Evan. Evan tried to dodge, but he wasn't fast enough. Valera moved instantly, grabbing the intruder by the arm and throwing them across the room with a burst of strength that made the walls tremble. The attacker hit the ground hard, but before Valera could capture them, they activated a cloaking device and vanished into thin air. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Evan breathed heavily, still recovering from the shock. "They were aiming for me." "Yes," Valera said, her voice harsher than before. "They wish to destabilize everything I have built. You are the easiest target. A human among Zyrathi. They think harming you will make me retreat. Will it?" Evan asked. She turned toward him, lowering her shield. Her markings dimmed slightly as emotion seeped through her controlled expression. "No," she said softly. "It will only make me protect you more." Evan swallowed, caught off guard by the sincerity in her voice. Valera stepped closer. "You should not be here in danger. And yet you remain. I said I wouldn't leave you." Her eyes softened. "Your loyalty? It is rare." Before she could say more, another guard rushed into the room. "Your Majesty, the council is assembling. They demand answers about the intrusion." Valera nodded. "I will face them." Then she turned to Evan. "You will stand with me." "Of course." "No," she said quietly. "I mean, truly stand with me. Beside me. Where the entire council can see who you are to me." Evan paused. "Are you sure?" Her voice lowered, gentle but steady. "I want them to see what I see." He didn't fully understand what she meant, but the warmth in her gaze told him enough. She extended her hand slightly, not touching him, but offering an unspoken invitation. Evan stepped forward. "I'm with you," he said. Her markings brightened, reflecting relief and something deeper. "Then let the council witness it," she said softly. And together, they walked toward the chamber where the fate of their 2 species would shift forever. The council chamber of the Zyrathi Palace was a massive circular hall shaped from glowing crystal pillars that reached high into the ceiling like frozen lightning. Streams of soft light poured from the walls, shifting with the natural pulse of the palace. As Evan entered beside Queen Valera, dozens of council members turned their eyes toward him. Their expressions were stern, curious, and in some cases hostile. A human walking next to their queen was something few of them had ever imagined. Evan felt the weight of their attention, but Valera's presence beside him steadied his nerves. She moved with calm authority, each step echoing in the silent chamber. Her markings glowed with a steady silver light, showing confidence and power. But Evan could sense the emotion beneath the surface. She was not afraid, But she was tired of being misunderstood, and today, she would no longer hide behind the throne. When she reached the center of the room, she stood tall and let her gaze sweep over the council. "You have gathered," she began, her voice deep and steady, "to demand answers regarding yesterday's attack." One counselor stepped forward, his armor glinting with gold. "Your Majesty, our security was breached twice. Our archives nearly destroyed. And an outsider," he pointed at Evan, "was present near the scene. We must question his role." Valeera's expression hardened. "He had no role in the attack." Another counselor spoke sharply. "How can we know? Humans have always approached our borders with caution. Some believe they intend to claim our resources." Evan held back the urge to respond, letting Valeera lead. She raised her voice slightly. "You question him because he is human. Yet he is the only being in this palace who acted without selfish motive." Murmurs spread through the room. Another counselor, older and more cautious, asked, "Your Majesty, why did you allow him near the royal archive? That access has never been granted to any outsider." "Because," Valeera said, looking directly at Evan, "he is not an outsider." The chamber fell into complete silence. Evan felt his breath catch, unsure if he heard her correctly. The council members stared in shock. One finally spoke. "Your Majesty, what do you mean?" Valeera stepped forward, her markings glowing brighter. "This human protected me when the palace was attacked. He acted without hesitation, without command, without fear. He risked his life to shield me." Many counselors exchanged uncertain glances. Valeera continued, voice softer but full of conviction. "You see a small human. I see someone who looked beyond my appearance. Someone who saw me not as a monster, but as a person worthy of trust." A ripple of emotion passed through the hall, as though her words touched something long unspoken. The golden-armored counselor protested, "But emotional trust cannot guide political decisions." Valeera silenced him with a look. "This is not simple emotion. This is truth." She turned fully toward Evan. For a moment, the council disappeared from her mind. Only he mattered. "When I asked him if I was a monster," she said quietly, "he answered with sincerity that left me breathless." Gasps echoed around the room. "But more than that," she continued, "he stayed. Even when he became a target. Even when he could have escaped. He stayed." Evan felt a tightening in his chest. He had never seen her speak so openly, so vulnerably, especially before others who held immense political power. One counselor spoke cautiously. "Your Majesty, are you saying this human is important to you?" Valeera looked directly at Evan, and her voice lowered, steady yet emotional. "Yes." The hall erupted with whispers. Evan swallowed hard. He had come here to prevent misunderstanding between their species, but now he stood at the center of something far greater. A younger counselor, calmer than the rest, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, if he is truly as you describe, then he should speak. Let us hear him." Valeera nodded and stepped aside slightly, offering Evan the center of the room. He took a breath and stepped forward. The hall felt enormous, but Valeera's gaze behind him kept him grounded. He spoke with clear, simple words. "I came here to build peace, not fear, not lies. The attack wasn't human. Someone is trying to harm the queen and blame others, but I stayed because I believe in her. I believe she's not the monster everyone thinks she is." Some counselors scoffed, but others leaned in, listening. Evan continued. "She wants the best for her people. She wants to protect you. She carries weight none of us could handle alone. And she deserves people who see her for who she really is." The room grew quiet again. "She is strong," Evan said softly. "But strength doesn't mean she should stand alone." Valeera's breath hitched, though she kept her composure. "And if you doubt me," Evan added, "then look at what happened. I had nothing to gain by saving her. But I couldn't let her get hurt." The older counselor studied him with a new expression, not suspicion, but contemplation. Finally, he turned to Valeera. "Your Majesty, I believe the human speaks truth." A few others nodded slowly. The golden-armored counselor remained hesitant. But what of appearances? What will the galaxy think if our queen places trust in a human over her own council? Valera's voice turned sharp with authority again. Let them think what they want. My decisions will be based on wisdom, not fear. She stepped beside Evan again, her presence firm and unwavering. I choose to trust him, she said, and I will not hide it. The council members lowered their heads. Even those who disagreed understood there was no argument strong enough to challenge a queen who spoke with both strength and honesty. After a long moment, the oldest counselor said, Then we stand with you, Your Majesty. Valera nodded once. This meeting is concluded. The investigation into the attackers will continue. But know this. Anyone who threatens peace, whether human or Zyrathi, will answer to me. The council bowed. As they dismissed themselves, the air in the chamber grew lighter. When the last member left, Valera finally exhaled deeply. She turned to Evan, stepping closer until he could see every shimmering line across her face. You spoke boldly, she said softly. I spoke honestly, Evan replied. Her eyes warmed. You stood beside me when the galaxy watched. You did not tremble, Evan chuckled. I was trembling inside. Her lips curved faintly. I did not notice. She moved even closer now, her markings glowing with a gentle, pulsing light. Evan realized it was the light her people showed when their emotions grew strong. She spoke quietly, almost shyly. You changed something today. Not just in the council, but in me. Evan swallowed softly. What do you mean? Her voice lowered. All my life, I believed my reflection made me unworthy of gentle words. I believed I had to be feared to be respected. But you... She paused, searching for the right words. You made me believe I could be seen differently. Evan met her eyes. You should be. She held his gaze with surprising vulnerability. Human, when you look at me now, what do you see? The question held the weight of everything she had never dared to ask anyone else. The room around them seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them standing in the gentle glow. Evan stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. She didn't. I see someone strong, he said softly. Someone brave. Someone who leads with heart, even if she hides it. Someone who is beautiful, maybe not by human standards. Maybe not by Zyrathi standards, but beautiful in a way that matters. Her breath caught sharply. And I see someone worth standing beside, Evan finished. For the first time in her life, Queen Valera looked genuinely breathless. Her markings pulsed like living starlight. Her posture softened, losing some of its rigid royal form. Evan, she whispered. He smiled gently. Yes? You are dangerous, she said. He blinked. Dangerous? Yes, she murmured, her eyes full of warmth. Because you make me feel things I have never allowed myself to feel. Evan felt heat rise in his chest. Is that bad? Valera slowly shook her head. No. It is new. She took one more step toward him. The gap between them faded until she stood close enough that he felt her warmth, her glow. Her voice dropped to a soft whisper. Walk with me, she said. Not as a diplomat, not as an envoy, but as someone I choose. Evan nodded, emotion filling his voice. I want that. She extended her hand, an invitation she had never offered to anyone before. Evan placed his hand gently over hers. Her markings brightened instantly, reacting like living light responding to his touch. Together, they walked out of the chamber, and for the first time in centuries, the alien queen walked beside someone not as a ruler, but as a person who had finally been seen,